Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Emilio Ramirez. I serve as the Oxnard Housing Director and are pleased to present a proposal for the Central Terrace Apartments along with various public improvements in the downtown area. Many Mansions, as you know, is a nonprofit that produces affordable housing in the region, including in the city of Oxnard. They have various success points along the way, including most recently the Almond Beach project here in Oxnard. Many Mansions has submitted a funding application to the Housing Department seeking $1.25 million of affordable housing in lieu funds to close a gap needed to develop an 87-unit affordable housing project here in downtown Oxnard. Those in lieu funds are collected from developers that are participating in the inclusionary housing ordinance, and it is used for development of affordable housing. Subject property is located at 2817 East 6th Street in downtown Oxnard, and the project is known as the Central Terrace Apartments. Project would target individual families that are at 30%, 50% of the area median income, and would also provide housing in the form of Housing First permanent supportive housing to otherwise homeless families. The program that they're seeking funding from comes from the Strategic Growth Council, known as the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities Program. And it is eligible to provide funding for development of affordable housing, but also to provide funding for public works improvements because its objective is to provide cost for reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. That funding application is due on June 8th. Here's a aerial of the site in question. As you can see, it is on 6th Street and is known as Central Terrace Apartments. There's a rendering of the project, multi-story building, residential affordable units, including PSH development units on site. The project site is on approximately a half an acre, just under a half an acre, and will include 4 stories of affordable housing over a podium ground floor. That ground floor will include a variety of uses, but it will also include permanent supportive housing units that are going to be supported by project-based vouchers from the Oxnard Housing Authority. Many Mansions received approval for the major downtown design development review on April 21 of 2021. Project will also require Planning Commission approval, which was set to go on May 20th, so before this June date. It hasn't yet been approved as at time of recording of this document, but it is expected to be approved. The in-lieu fund balance includes about $3.1 million that it has right now. We are proposing to contribute $1.25 million to this project, leaving a fund balance of just under $1.9 million. If approved, the affordable housing in-lieu loan documents will provide for a loan that is accruing interest at 3%, that is paid out of that fund receiving residual receipt payments. What that means is that first they pay the other lenders, and after all that is done, if there is sufficient funding from program operations, then that funding is residual receipts that may come to service the debt. Many Mansions is required to secure all project financing and close construction by May 2025. If not, then this loan and this proposed agreement would self-terminate. If so, then it goes for 55 years and it closes at that time. The total cost of the project is just over $44 million. And as you can see on screen, the various sources of funds includes the City of Oxnard, private debt from Union Bank, that application from Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities, Federal Home Loan Bank, deferred developer fees, and tax credit equity, all generating the $44.8 million budget. As I mentioned, the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities grant also provides for public improvements in an area that can provide connection to the transit center, seeking to reduce vehicle miles traveled, therefore reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And in this case, we are proposing to provide funding for the 4th Street Mobility Improvement Project and the Downtown Oxford Transit Amenities Project. Both of them are included in the Capital Improvements Program and have been approved to move forward. The combined sources would use about $5.4 million for those projects. We're proposing an implementation agreement between the city and Many Mansions because the city is not a direct applicant to the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities Grant Program. Many Mansions is that applicant, and the city would be a sub-recipient of those funds, and therefore we will implement the public works improvements via this implementation agreement. We'd use up to $5.4 million for those public improvements along 4th Street and the Oxnard amenities improvements projects. The city would be the lead of the project. The city would be responsible for submitting draw requests to Many Mansions, who would transfer funding to the city. The city does have to upfront pay for the improvements, and then it would be reimbursed from this grant via Many Mansions. Final cost of design or construction increases at the time of the bid and award, or if funding is awarded in an amount less, the city will be responsible for funding the cost overages. We cannot get additional funding from the grant program if in fact it costs more than the $5.4 million. We're expecting construction to start summer 2024 and to complete in January 2025. The location and description of the improvements, including 4th Street mobility and downtown transit amenities, are depicted on the screen. They're connected to the transit center, to that affordable housing project that is on Meta. And 6th, you can see on screen the improvements that are proposed with this funding: design, curb extensions, ADA improvements, signal modifications, bike lanes, benches, a variety of different things that could provide for the reduction of vehicle miles traveled. There's a map showing the connection between the Central Terrace proposed apartment complex and the 4th Street Mobility Improvement Project. So staff recommends approval of an authorization for the mayor to execute an affordable housing in lieu loan agreement and regulatory agreement with Many Mansions in an amount of $1.25 million for construction of 86 affordable rental units at 2035 East 6th Street in Oxnard. Approve a budget appropriation of $1.25 million from the Oxnard Housing in Lieu Fund, and authorize the city manager or designee to make necessary corrections or modifications to the in lieu loan agreement, regulatory agreement, deed of trust, promissory note to make them consistent with each other if needed. Authorize the mayor to execute the implementation agreement with Many Mansions to receive pass-through grant funding associated with the Central Terrace Apartments application. Thank you. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you may have.